So I work at a hospital with tech that's probably older than half this room. No, I know it's funny. Just you can come. It's okay. So it was funny. We had a kickoff call, the 5 of us, to talk about zero trust, and I got like 2 super cloud people to the left or right of me, and Anne-Marie, who's kind of in the middle. Maybe, I don't know. I was kind of inferring that from your lack of, objection to my point.
lack.
Yes, right, exactly.
What?
I know. I'll take my beatings later. So, in my world, trying to take technology that's 20, 25, 30 years old and retrofit it to what is a concept that Google is now implementing is very, round peg, square hole-ish on a scale that you can't imagine. So zero trust for me is starting at the very basics, probably where Google did, or where Google started to think about it, is to say, well, how can I, number one, identify what's most critical to me, identify a profile of protection, of which maybe there's 15 elements of protection, one being identity management, probably the first. And then saying, well, how can I structure my identity to make sure that the right people are there, and how frequently should they be authenticating, and how should I be proving that? And then what types of behavior is allowed, and how should I understand that and build that into a profile of protection? And then work your way down to the network stack to say, well, how can my network be configured to make sure that access to that thing is granted to the people who have the right identity, and that we're challenging identity appropriately throughout that process. And so we look at it very much from a kind of a start with the low-hanging fruit, which is easy, external perimeter-centric defenses, and start taking steps into our data center, foot by foot, one step at a time, to capture assets that are available, low-hanging fruit, apply a protection profile, and then align identity management, access control, network segmentation to that layer, and then take another step in, do the same thing, take another step in. So the interesting thing for us has been trying to scale technology that's not really designed to do this. Like Citrix is a huge part of our answer right now because it helps us build the bubble. But that doesn't go everywhere, and it doesn't cover every aspect of the stack, and it certainly doesn't hit every 15 control. But that's how we're doing it in a legacy environment, is to start where it's easiest and move in, and eventually we're going to hit the asset and the data and the stuff that we really care about. But from now on, or at least until we can deal with the legacy issue by not being legacy, it's starting from an outside in and working where. I would love to work in a cloud-first environment because that's really dope, and I think it'd be totally different, but that's not my life. So
I first started my security career working in a traditional data center environment, and I think most people here probably did that. Most people are familiar with working in a real data center with real firewalls and all that type of stuff, and I'd argue that zero trust is needed regardless of whether you're in a cloud-native environment or in a traditional environment. I came from the space where, we had these super strong firewalls and WAFs and IPS devices protecting our data center, or at least thinking that they did. And I don't ever think that was the case, that we had true, strong security in place. Just the misnomer that we were secure because of that. I'd argue that a zero trust model is secure regardless of whether you're in a cloud infrastructure or in a native cloud, in a traditional data center. I'd say that it is much easier in the cloud because one of the advantages we have is this ubiquitous metadata and inventory about what all of our assets are, regardless of whether we have 10 servers or 5,000 servers. Something that's come along with implementing cloud from a security perspective, which is great, is that you just have this inventory of what is this thing, what's it designed for, what cost center is it applied to, who started it, what's its purpose. Or at least you should.
I'm gonna jump in when you're done on that one.
But yeah, not always. I think the advantage is, though, if you have that highly orchestrated environment, it's much, much easier. You're in a much better place to say, this is what this thing is, and then accordingly you can figure out what's the risk profile, what is it actually authorized to speak to. And I've worked in environments which have 10,000 different microservices, each with whitelisted services. And the only way we were able to do that was because we enforced really strong metadata around this is what this is who owns it, this is what its purpose is, this is what its security classification is, and if you didn't have that, you couldn't deploy through that orchestrated system.
So I think that's a very valid point for for the majority of solutions or capabilities that you're trying to pursue. So, what Ben's describing is a high degree of hygiene in this case. What I've seen over the last 20 years, and, I was at Capital One when they went to the cloud, all in, amongst other places. And so I've seen hybrid, I've seen native, I've seen only on-prem. Something like Zero Trust requires a high degree of hygiene and the maintenance of that hygiene. So whereas you may have excellent systems now at any given point in time, if you do not dedicate resources to maintain that, then what will happen is over time, and in the cloud this can get extremely exasperated really fast, but over time you will end up sacrificing, or what I've seen is there's a tendency to sacrifice maintenance and speed and metadata, or for maintenance rather, for speed rather, for deployment, for I just need to get it done, right? And you start to lose track of your assets, and then something like Zero Trust becomes untenable, right? You start finding that you're sharing and replicating services and data across regions that you have no idea. You turn on continuous snapshotting and stuff lives everywhere, right? And so then it's hard to enforce the same policies. So if you're going to endeavor something like that, it has to, like a Zero Trust, regardless of what it is, that process, like anything, has to be really thought out